West Ham are set to back VAR? Really? My word, how controversial has VAR been since it's joined football in general? But I think really essentially I felt like it has to be managed by the right people. And if that means it's got to be people who have been in the game, then so be it, because some of the decisions have been absolutely ridiculous, like really bad, not just for West Ham, but West Ham have had been on the wrong side of it. We'll talk about that in a second. But West Ham supposedly are expected to be one of the clubs to vote in support of keeping VAR beyond the 23-24 season, despite Wolves mounting pressure on the Premier League to get rid of the technology. Now, the vote has been fueled by Wolves, believe that VAR is damaging the Premier League brand after they released a 6-page document in a bid to the court, their support to scrap it. And it will take place on June the 6th and will require 14 of the 20 Premier League clubs to vote to pass the motion. But while it's been heavily criticised since its introduction back in 2019, it appears that a significant number of Premier League clubs will continue to support its place in the sport and head towards its 5th year, with West Ham supposedly, according to reports, in favour of Premier League keeping VAR. Now, how's VAR affected West Ham in the 23-24 season? So a table without VAR for that season shows West Ham still would have finished 9th if VAR hadn't been used last term, with West Ham being denied just 3 points across 38 games. Nevertheless, it hasn't stopped the club from being one of the clubs that have been in the full-blown controversy involving it. We could go back to the 1-0 draw with Aston Villa back in March. David Moyes fumed after 3 VAR decisions went against us, and they did, including a stoppage time winner when it was ruled out that Thomas Soucek had handled the ball before it crossed the line. There are many more to go through, but the ruling broke an unwanted Premier League record, with the decision taking 5 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, Moyes scrutinised the lack of accuracy and efficiency by those in the control room over in Stockley Park, and was equally keen to point out that it wasn't the first time his side had suffered from unfair judgments, with controversy also taking the headlines in our fixtures against Burnley, then Freiburg, and the Europa League in the previous 10 days to that fixture. You have to go back to last season, the season before that, and even in particular when Max Carney, for example, against Chelsea. Honestly, some of the most ridiculous decisions I've seen it go against West Ham. And this what makes it really interesting, because if West Ham are to vote in favour of VAR, then our vice chairman has been very open and out there speaking loud about why she doesn't like VAR. And that's what makes it for interesting. And one could be forgiven for thinking otherwise, considering that she has been very critical of the VAR situation. And whilst also stating that the club have not made a decision at the time of her most recent update in her column in that silly newspaper she writes for, which I'm not going to mention anymore. She actually said, you don't need a PhD in human behavior or even more baffling the handball laws to realize VAR has not been a universal success. It was supposed to iron out the mistakes, make the game fairer for all, to improve the overall experience for fans. To put it plainly, it has not done any of that. And at West Ham, any decision on which has to vote has not been decided by. In many ways, VAR has been a disaster, especially for the lifeblood of the game and the supporters. Supporters pay good money to be entertained, and sitting there waiting to be interminable minutes for a decision from Stockley Park has been driven many bonkers. Now, this is what's interesting, because this has come out from a reputable source who is in the mainstream media, saying that West Ham are about to back it, considering Karen Brady is against it. So the question I pose to you, if you are watching right now, what would you do if you were West Ham? Would you back the decision to keep VAR, or would you go against it? Now, here is where I am at. I'm for it within reason, but it has to be managed and it has to be dealt with differently. And this whole rule about the minute the referee blows that whistle to start the game again, it kind of, the whole thing baffles me, because I've sometimes seen, and we've all seen the replays, and if you think about the Wolves incident against Manchester United when Onana came out and punched their player, and I can't remember if they didn't get a penalty or what. If that's what it was. Like some of them are so blatant. Like why are they taking so long to address it? When you look at all other sports that use gold line technology, even in football or the hockey and tennis and sports throughout the whole world in America and all over worldwide that seem to have technology that seems to work. But I think the unfortunate thing with VAR and also just in general with football, when we change the rules left, right, and centre for the offside rule, that we become so complicated that in actual fact, your Joe Bloggs, who watches football and has watched football for 40 years, has no actual idea what is going on. So if West Ham favour it, I believe if clubs are going to favour it, they have to put caveats in to make the Premier League change. But I don't see that happening, and I feel like we're going to be left with VAR situation. And if you haven't been in a stadium when VAR has taken place and you've scored a goal, honestly, it kind of what you're trying to avoid is taking away that raw emotion of when you score a goal. And I would say it hasn't fully taken away the raw emotion, but the energy levels that you get consumed from your body the minute that you see a VAR check going up after you've celebrated for a minute thinking you're going to win the game. Honestly, it's the most ridiculous thing, and I don't get half the rules that they bring out. Anyway, short and sweet one for you. West Ham supposedly are going to vote in favour of VAR. What would you do if you were the decision maker of West Ham? Take it easy. Come on, you.